Yo, what is up? This is Making a Millie, Week 11, your Millie Maker special on DraftKings. Really large field GPPs, so these plays apply to the mini-max, small stakes, all large field GPP tournaments. I got my co-host Eric here with me to break it down. How we doing, Eric?
I'm good, man. Glad to be back. I'm sorry I missed last week. I guess life happens, and
Yeah,
I missed it, but I'm glad to be back.
yeah, no worries. We missed a couple weeks. It's fine now. This is kind of just a leisure show, so we're having fun with it. We're not paid. We're not forced to be here. So when it works, we'll be here, and when it doesn't, then we'll do something else. Whatever else we're doing.
Yeah, man. Anytime I can spend time with you, whether it's in person or virtual, I'll take it.
Absolutely, man. Likewise. So we are about to kind of jump into the slates, but before that, let's kind of get into Walk of Shame, Eric. And if this is your first time watching the show, we like to do a Walk of Shame from the prior week. Some spot we failed. It could be in redraft. It could be, dynasty. Could be DFS, whatever it may be. Eric, do you got one for last week?
I do have one for last week. I thought with Dak being out, I thought Cooper Rush was like, it's a good play. He won't go crazy, but maybe 10 points, 12 points. I ended up playing him in a fair amount of leagues, including dynasties. I bid for him in dynasties, and I lost a few leagues because of him. But the worst part about the big walk of shame is I lost a league by 3 points. He got -4 in that league. So had I just started nobody or just put myself in there to play, I would have won. So getting -4 points cost me a couple leagues, couple games. So that's my walk of shame, was putting Cooper Rush in. I thought he'll be okay. He's got a lot of weapons around him, but no.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought he would. I didn't play him last week, but I thought he would do better because he's looked decent. And he kind of bombed CeeDee Lamb. Part of it though is like Jerry Jones. Why did you design a stadium that your players can't see the football, dude? Like,
I know.
CeeDee Lamb couldn't see the ball. I got lost in the sun. It was an easy touchdown. But so my walk of shame was Mac Jones. I played him because he was like 4,400 and he looked pretty good in the preseason. And I was like, he's 4,400. Maybe he'll come in and play good for one game, giving 18 to 20 points. And, at 4,400, that's like tournament winning value. So, and then he started out like pretty good and he had like 8 points right away. And then he just completely went to crap. So, and I played probably like 10% of him, which was way too much.
You never know. Sometimes you get the resurgence, like the Flacco or someone like a Baker or whatever. They join another team and they do better. But I'm with you. He started the game really well. I'm like, oh, maybe Mac Jones has something, and then they didn't score again after that.
Yeah. Him and Sam Darnold, they were just having an ass off of who could be worse in that game. I watched that game again, and it was so bad, the quarterback play. I couldn't believe how bad it was.
It was. I don't know what happened to Darnold, but like he's thrown up a lot of interceptions right near the end zone in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Hopefully he can get out of his own head.
Yeah, he's turned back into a pumpkin. But we're about to jump into the Vegas lines. And by the way, while you're here, please let us know if you like the show. Hit that like button, comment. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. A lot more DFS and best ball content coming your way. But with that, all right, Eric. So we got really a lot of middling games, and I typically like the slate when there's a lot of middling games, when there's games hovering around 44 points that can hit the over, could hit over 50. That seems to certainly be the case. The couple game environments that really stand out is Baltimore going on the road to play Pittsburgh, divisional matchup, two good teams. Pittsburgh, they've been playing better offensively, and Baltimore, we know their secondary is not very good. So I think maybe Pittsburgh can score in this game, and we could potentially have a back and forth high scoring game. What do you think?
Yeah, I think if you look back to last week, I mean, they literally had almost 70 points, 69 points scored with the Bengals and the Ravens.
Yeah.
divisional game, but the Ravens offense is really good, but the defense doesn't seem like they can stop people this year. So,
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think Wilson has been playing better. I don't know if it was the coaching or the system or whatever it was, but Tomlin just has a way, and he's been playing much better. So I like it. I do like it, and it's like I said, they gave up 34 points last week, so it shows they can.
Yeah.
They're not like this stop all defense. So I do like that matchup a lot. A lot of players in that game. I like Wilson. I like Pickens. I like Jackson. I like Flowers. Even Najee, and of
Yeah.
course, King Henry's going to be played a lot. But I like a lot of players in that game.
What I like about Pittsburgh offense right now is Wilson has two wide receivers that really fit his skill set. Throwing to Pickens, just throwing those 50-50 balls. And then Williams is that deep threat, right? So he's kind of I think he's going to play a great role there. Wilson's going to be the chalk, though. That's kind of surprising. I don't like Wilson as chalk. I don't like Jameis Winston as chalk, and we're gonna sort through the quarterbacks, but there are ways to get different in that game. I like Andrews. Henry's in a tough matchup, so he's at low ownership, but we've seen in the past if Baltimore could just move the ball effectively, which they certainly can with Lamar. Henry can get down there and fall into the end zone a couple times and still have a really good day. So there's going to be players to target in that game. The second game, Eric, another divisional matchup. We got San Francisco at home against Seattle. Christian McCaffrey's back. I love when he's back because it's like a cheat code for Brock Purdy. Like Purdy has his best games when Christian McCaffrey's there because he's like another receiver out of the backfield.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of pressure off of Purdy. So what do you think? What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I like. McCaffrey's going to be chalk for sure. Like, no question about that. But I like the game a lot. I think there's, when you have a guy like McCaffrey, it's kind of hard to. He's great in fantasy. You have guys who are good in fantasy and guys who are good in real NFL, and you have McCaffrey who's both amazing in both, and he can block. He can good pass catcher. He's a good runner. He does everything. I like this game a lot. These divisional games, they end up being. Sometimes they end up being kind of low scoring, and you didn't predict it, but oftentimes they'll end up being also high scoring. They know each other well. They play each other twice a year. I like it a lot. I actually like the other side of that a lot as well. I like Geno coming back off the bye week, and DK coming back as well. He's got his number one receiver back. I like the over on this. It's 48. I like the over, and I like the Seahawks side a lot as well. There's not a lot of talk of. I haven't heard much of Ken Walker, but. My cousin, by the way. Just kidding. But same last name. Anyway, I like the game a lot. I think it's one of the ones that's going to go on the over. And I like a lot of people are focusing on the San Francisco side. I like the Seattle side a lot.
Some of the field would agree with you. Geno's ownership's starting to climb now, 7%. So, yeah, man. They played San Francisco really well. They typically lose those games, but they make it competitive and they push San Francisco, and that's exactly what we want. San Fran to hit that 27-point play team total. I love Purdy this week. I like Christian McCaffrey. I like Jennings. The only guy I really don't like is Debo. He's just not very good against man. Hasn't been very good against man. And hopefully Kittle will play. I need him. In best ball. So I got.
He's questionable, right?
Yeah, he's questionable.
Game time decision. Yep.
Yeah. And then, kind of the last game environment I think is really good. We got Detroit, same thing that Minnesota had last week, except they are serious Super Bowl contenders. And, we know they're going to score a lot of points. They don't got Sam Darnold back there. So the Detroit side, 30-point team total, like this can't be ignored. I think when you're building lineups, like you have to focus on getting Detroit Lions into your lineup. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I got some sleepers later on this team that I like. So that's a pretty good spot. And I think you could probably just avoid the other side entirely with a 16-point team total. What do you think?
It's crazy because we discussed a little bit beforehand of this, and I was looking at Vegas lines and stuff, and I was like, how is this game 47 with Mac Jones playing? It's like, how? And I looked at it's almost a 14-point swing for Detroit, in which the NFL, you don't see that very often, right? So
Yeah.
this is like the few times I've seen differentiate this far away, it's usually comes back to bite me. So hopefully it doesn't happen this time. But I agree with you. I think the Detroit side there's a lot of great players you could do. I mean, Montgomery, if they have a huge lead, Montgomery might be the guy to go to. It could, I know Amon Ra's a chalk player this week as well, but I hope somehow Jacksonville can keep it competitive,
Mm-hmm.
but I doubt it. So yeah, I was surprised by this game being such a high total, just because of I don't
Yeah.
expect Jacksonville to even put up I don't know, they scored like 7 or 10 last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see a big area. It's like you said, very one sided is what I see.
Yeah, I don't expect a lot of life from them. And then, Kansas City, a couple other games, just to briefly go over real quick here. Kansas City at Buffalo. Buffalo with a 24-point fly team total. These teams, always get up to play each other. Mahomes versus Allen. And, oftentimes all these games have gone – everyone remembers the big shootout in the playoffs, in Kansas City several years ago. But oftentimes when these two teams play each other, it's been low scoring. So I think this could potentially hit the under here. But also this game could go a lot of different ways. So I could see it going over. I could see it going under. I think there's a lot of variance in this game, and that's why it's, good for GPPs. I will say that I always like playing Josh Allen when he's at low ownership, and he's projected for 4% ownership here. So I have a little bit of intrigue in this game. What do you think?
I like what you're going on. I like Josh Allen a lot because a lot of times these low scoring these like it's not super low projected, but Josh Allen is the guy who can get it done on the feet. He runs a lot, and games like this he'll kind of put the shoulders down and try to make things happen. I think he's got he's lost a couple close games to the Chiefs like you were talking about in the years, and I think he's got a little chip on his shoulder, and I think he wants to. I mean, they always want to win, right? But I think maybe a little more.
I
Maybe a little bit
agree.
more. So I like this game. I can see it hitting around the projected total, but I definitely I'm hoping that the Chiefs lose this game.
Yeah.
I mean, being a Broncos fan, and I don't want to get too far into it, but
Yeah.
I mean, last week was it was unfortunate. The Broncos probably should have won that. Should have gotten 5 yards closer because of the penalty and beating the Chiefs. There's been a lot of close games, and sorry, Chiefs fans. I have no pity, but there's been a lot that they could almost be like 5-4 right now, or 6-3 or something like that. But things have gone in their favor
for sure. And then we have Miami going against your Raiders. I do feel like this could be an explosion spot for Miami at home against the Raiders. So I like the Miami side. I like Devin Achon specifically. He might be a core for me. We'll see when we get to our cores a little bit later. But also like, if there's ever a spot for Tyreek Hill to get going, I think this is the week. So I'll have some of him as well. I'm not playing Tua, but I will have some Tyreek Hill.
Well, there's a theme in some of my picks that I have, and it's going against my team, so I don't blame you.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. As far as the games, obviously there's a couple other spots, 44-point games. Cleveland, we can't ignore them just because they're going to be chalk. Jameis is looking like chalk. Cedric Tillman is looking like chalk. And they're going against the New Orleans teams that's just been gashed defensively. They traded Marcus Lattimore. So, they basically packed it in. They got Carr back. They got Kamara. So we'll see in this game. I could see this game being higher scoring. And then Denver, we're getting some chalk Knicks, chalk Sutton. They're going against an Atlanta team that has a problem getting after the quarterback. So I like the Denver side of this. I think the field would certainly agree with me, but I don't know that I like Knicks in Sutton chalk. I think if I'm playing this game, I'm doing Knicks to some of his other pass catchers, and we'll get to that in a bit. Eric, what are your thoughts on these couple games here?
Yeah, I'm curious about the Broncos Atlanta game specifically because I think the game they're going to get after Cousins, and he kind of struggles under pressure. We've seen that before a lot.
Yeah.
I think it could end up being a pretty close game. I like this game. I think it's going to be good for. I was looking at some stacks earlier with Knicks and Sutton, but like you said, they're kind of chalky. But yeah, I like the game. I think it can end. I think it's going to go on the lower. I think it's going to hit the under on the Vegas line. But I do like that game. That's one I want to watch. I'm excited to watch.
Most definitely. Well, let's
and
go ahead.
That's coming from a Raiders fan, by the way. I'm excited to watch the Bronco game. So there you go.
Yeah, I'm excited for it too. Should be a good one. Top stacks. All right, Eric, I will let you start it first. Who are your top stacks this week?
I think I was briefly talking to you about that, and I said I think this week I'm going to be a little more like chalky on my picks than normal. But the first one I had was that I was looking through was like, man, I like the game. I like we were talking about earlier, could be a high scoring game is Russell Wilson, which is kind of weird saying that because after his stint with the Broncos was pretty bad, and Pickens.
Okay.
I like that stack a lot. I also like, which we're talking about earlier, also Jameis Winston and Cedric Tillman. And I also had listed Tua and Hill, and the last one I had was Lamar Jackson, same game, and Zay Flowers. He had kind of a bad, not bad, but just they used Derrick Henry a lot last week, and I think this week they may pass a little more. So I had Lamar and Flowers in there as well.
Okay. Yeah, those are good ones.
So I gave you 4 instead of 3.
Yeah, that's all right. The only one I don't like is the Jameis one, and just because Jameis chalk just feels like such a chalky play. But I know probably when we were looking at these, we didn't think he would be chalky either. But yeah, I like the Wilson to Pickens ones. Pickens one. Also really like Lamar. Lamar at low ownership is just crazy in a game where they're projected for 25 points. And the thing about Lamar is the matchup is tough, so that's kind of keeping people off of him. He's currently projected for like 4% ownership, but Lamar can beat tough matchups. And I would say Pittsburgh has not gone against an offense like this year. So I got a sneaky one for you, Deontay Johnson. Revenge game narrative. Tomlin's taking shots. I think they're going to force him the ball in this game. I really do. So if you're playing Lamar, I like a little bit of Deontay Johnson mixing in there. So for me, my stacks, I got a few of them, kind of alluded to it earlier that I really like Brock Purdy and Juwan Jennings. Juwan Jennings has really kind of taken over that Brandon Ayuk role. And he's been kind of the man beater, much like Brandon Ayuk was. It was always when they're playing a man team, it's Brandon Ayuk. When they're playing his zone team, it's Deebo Samuel. Well, this week they are playing a man team, Seattle. So I really like Juwan Jennings with Purdy. Another stack for me, Eric. A couple other ones. Jared Goff this week with that 30-point implied team total. And my thought process here is if you look at, of course, we'll go to the kind of the ownerships here, courtesy of DFS Army, but Jahmyr Gibbs getting ownership, David Montgomery getting ownership. So it's obvious the field wants to play the running backs. Why don't we play the wide receivers here? Now, Jameson I'll just spoil it now. He's going to be one of my sleepers because he's very good against man coverage. And that's what they're going against a scheme that plays a lot of it. So I like Jameson Williams this week as a pivot off of that chalk. Amon-Ra, anytime Amon-Ra is, going to be active and, they're going to have a high implied team total. I want to play Amon-Ra as well, but he's getting about 10% ownership. So my way to get different would be with Jameson. And, I think we'd play Brock Wright too with Laporta out. Cheap Brock Wright. I like that.
He's a free square, pretty much, right? 2,500. I mean, he's
yes, yeah, he's 3,500, I think.
No, 3,500. Like sorry.
Yeah. And then last for me, Knicks to everyone's going to be playing Sutton. I'm not going to go that way next to Sutton. I'm gonna get his second guy who's been getting targeted often. That's Vele, and I think Vele's been getting 7, 8 targets past several weeks. And also, Franklin is a guy that no one's going to be on. And I think Nick's is taking shots several times, specifically when Denver's been at home. He's taking shots to Franklin. So I like a little bit of Franklin mixed in just as a cheap stack that's completely contrarian. So those are going to be my stacks.
I like Vele. He's there's been a lot of talk about him, and he started the season really strong and kind of got hurt, kind of came back.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot of rumbles like in Denver about him. So I like that stack.
Most definitely. Could be the week. We'll see. Anytime you got wide receiver 1 chalk and quarterback chalk, I'm like, if I'm playing that, I'm like, there's no way I'm playing that stack. But if I am playing a stack of that quarterback, I'm going to play it with, the other pass catchers that people are overlooking. Yeah. But I think with that, let's go ahead and hop into the course. Eric, who are your 3 courses you're going to be building around this week?
I think we've talked about 2 of the 3 already. They came up already, but one of them was David Montgomery.
Yeah,
we'll see what's running back. I know a lot of people are going to be on him for this game. I don't know if Jacksonville's going to do much. The game gets pretty far ahead. It's obviously a crutch argument because you never know what's going to happen. But I like Detroit a lot in this game. So does Vegas. I like David Montgomery in this matchup. Another one is the theme I talked about earlier is Achane. The Raiders, they're my team, but they're not a very good team, offense or defense. Their defense is better than the offense, but they're not very good. And the last one is DK Metcalf against the 49ers.
Okay.
That's obviously one of the higher projected totals. His first game back, but that's his number 1 receiver, and I like those. So Montgomery, Metcalf, and Achane.
I like that. Actually, one of mine is Achane. He's just been incredibly good when Tua has been in the lineup this year. And, specifically in this matchup, he's going against a Raiders team that is bottom 5 against the run on this slate. So I like Achane. He's had multiple 20-plus point fantasy points games against with Tua in the lineup this year. So that's been important to me. I like him. I like Christian McCaffrey. Eric, I think this is, we saw him come back last week and, shake the rust off a little bit, look good, get 88% of the snaps, 20-plus opportunities. Well, I think this is a great spot for him actually to get going. And, we could see the Christian McCaffrey that we've been accustomed to. And he's got a really good matchup too. Seattle, they're a bottom 5 run defense on this slate. So those are a couple cores for me, specifically with Kamara getting so much ownership. I like just a little bit less with Christian McCaffrey. And then last, Cedric Tillman. It's one of those things where I don't want Jameis stacks, but give me Cedric Tillman.
Yep.
It's just at his price. We were talking about it earlier before we came on. Like he's just underpriced relative to the role that we've been seeing from him. 9+ targets, like past several games. I think he's had over, 20 DraftKings points the past couple games without just Sean Watson, who basically just ruined his fantasy value and development. So I like him this week going against New Orleans secondary that is just bad without Lattimore.
Yeah, it's just got worse. I like Tillman a lot. I agree with you on that. It's a nice play there. It's high owned, but such a 5,300. That's kind of hard not to play him.
Most definitely. Well, it's time, Eric. We're going to do the dice roll. If you've never watched this show before, how we do this, we do a little bit of lineup building for the Millie Maker on the show. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do a dice roll. Eric's going to roll, then I'm going to roll. And whoever lands on each of these games will stack the game. We'll be forced to stack that game. Some sort of stack doesn't have to necessarily be the quarterback, but some sort of stack. And then we will get into sleepers. So we're going to do the dice roll first, and then, we'll start. Eric will build, and I'll do my sleepers and vice versa. So let's go ahead and start with Eric. It's got to be a 1, a 2, or a 3. So you
1.
got the
Baltimore,
top
Pittsburgh.
game. That's probably the one you wanted, Baltimore and Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, I was kind of playing with some. Yeah, I like that lineup.
Okay. So this works for me because I got San Fran, who honestly I want to stack the most anyway.
You talking about Purdy on that one?
Yeah.
Purdy and Woodchester.
So, in fact, what we're going to do here actually is I'm just going to go, and this is one of the great things about DFS Army's domination station that I'm using right now to build this lineups is I'm just going to lock in Brock Purdy, and I'm going to do 150 lineups, as you can see here, with Purdy that are being spit out as we are on the stream. And I will pick my lineup from here. So very important tool, seeing projections, seeing ownership, being able to force stacks, elevate players, boost them up, bump them down, however you like it. And, right now we got special. You can use code FANTASYFLING for 10% off a VIP subscription. I'll go ahead and put that link in the video description if you want access to not just the optimizer, but the cheat sheets, the chalkboard, the Discord community, the research station, the Proptimizer, all the DFS Army tools. You can get access to those. But so, Eric, you're building your lineup now. I'll go ahead and
I'm almost there.
Okay, I'll go ahead and go with my sleep. All right, 3 sleepers I like this week. I already mentioned one of them, already spoiled it. Jameson Williams, 5%. It's a really good scheme. The running backs are getting ownership. Amon-Ra is getting ownership, and it's a tremendous matchup. So I will probably be way over the field on Jameson Williams in this spot. Another guy that I like, Eric, we talked a little bit about the Broncos versus the Falcons. I don't like Drake London. He's a fade for me this week going against Patrick Surtain. Darnell Mooney's priced a little bit high as a pivot. So I like Ray McLeod. He's like in the 4K range, and he's been getting targets every week. I think he's had at least one 20-point game this season, and he's projected for 1% ownership. So when I look at the matchups, Surtain likely to cover London. Riley Moss probably going to be on Mooney a lot of the game. Give me that third option, Ray McLeod at 1%. And then my last one, Cooper Kupp this week. Puka Nacua has got a pretty tough matchup against an ascending New England corner. So I like Cooper Kupp, lining up in the slot, them moving him all over the field this week at 5% ownership. I think it's a pretty good spot for Cooper Kupp. So that would be my third sleeper.
Nice. I had a little bit of overlap with you. I like those calls. I was debating back and forth between McLeod and Jameson Williams. So we had two of them that overlapped. I ended up going with McLeod though, so I also have him as a sleeper as well. Should I go over his sleepers or my lineup first? What would be?
Why don't you go? Let's do your lineup, and then I will kind of scan what the domination station is giving me, and I'll go through my lineup, and you can give me your sleepers at that time.
Yep, sounds good. Yeah, and I like that. I had the same lineup for you as far as those 2 sleepers as well. I had to choose between one. I guess I didn't have to, but so with the Ravens Steelers game that I drew on the die there, I went with the stack I talked about that I really liked about was Russell Wilson and George Pickens.
Okay.
They seem to have a good connection. I like what I'm seeing. It's hopefully going to be a high point total, which hopefully Vegas also shows. So the running backs, I kind of went a little bit. So I went a little bit lower ownership on the running backs, a little bit higher ownership on my receivers. So I started with Wilson and Pickens, as mentioned. My running backs are Nick Chubb. Last week, when the the week before? Anyway, Chuba Hubbard ran all over the Saints. I like Nick Chubb this week. I know he's coming back still from surgery, working his way back in, but 6,000. I like him this week. And the other one, which may surprise you, is a Bronco. It's Audric Estime. He didn't get any receptions last week, which is a little troubling. But if the game stays close and depending on the game script, he may have opportunity to get some points. He's only 4,500. I liked the matchup. I think it could be a good game for him. My other receivers are Cedric Tillman and Calvin Ridley. In my flex, I also have Justin Jefferson, who's a little bit higher owned. And my tight end, I went with Dawson Knox. I think he's about 10%, somewhat highly owned. And then I went with the Miami Dolphins for the defense. As talked about earlier with the Raiders, especially with Minshew starting again.
Okay.
I'm not real high on that. So to recap, my stack is Russell Wilson and George Pickens. I have Nick Chubb and Estime as my running backs. I also have Cedric Tillman, Calvin Ridley, and Justin Jefferson.
Okay.
Dawson Knox and the Dolphins defense.
Yeah, I like that. We were talking a little earlier beforehand, and I was saying what a lot of the field is going to do is play the expensive running backs and pay down at wide receiver. So I like doing kind of the opposite of that, finding some guys and some good value running backs.
Yep.
With Estime and Chubb. So I like that a lot, Eric.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It was it kind of worked out. It wasn't because of our talk. I'd kind of gone that direction anyway. You know, the whole zig when zigzag or type thing. Yeah. So yeah.
No, that works out. That works out great. So let me see here. I think I'm probably gonna go with the fifth one. And then who are your sleepers again?
So the sleepers one that we had overlapping was Ray McLeod.
Okay.
I think he's a wide receiver 3 or maybe 4, depending on what you consider Kyle Pitts. Okay. Either way, though, he's shown that he's played really well these last weeks, and obviously has a connection with Cousins. The other one I have is Nick Chubb, who I put in my lineup, and the last one I had was Matt Collins. With Keon Coleman being out and Kincaid being out, I mean, maybe it goes to more Knox, maybe it goes to Matt Collins. I mean, Matt Collins is kind of a big play guy, but he's had games where he's had pretty good, multiple touchdown games, so kind of banking on that. And he's also pretty inexpensive as well. So Matt Collins was my last sleeper for the Bills.
I am a fan of that, definitely. I think he's been kind of overlooked this year. He's had some good games. Very surprising, honestly, to see the start that he's had this year with Buffalo.
Yeah, he's done better than I thought he would. I mean, he's a Raider for a while, so I watched him play a lot of games, and he's kind of hit or miss, but he's kind of seemed to step up this year when other players are out.
Definitely. Well, Eric, I'm going to go with my lineup here. I've been scrolling through these. Like I said, I just quickly made 150 of these. I think one that I do like here is Purdy to Christian McCaffrey to Jawan Jennings. So I actually like stacking McCaffrey with Purdy. I've seen it just win a lot. Because he's like another receiver out of the backfield. And like I said, I love the matchup for Jennings. H-On was a core for me. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, only 10% ownership going against a terrible Jacksonville secondary, actually worse than the league. Yet the running backs are getting, a lot of ownership. So I like just sticking with Amon-Ra. I think it's actually a really good spot for him. Kayshon Boutte, really good value, 3,500. He's chalk, but I think it's good chalk given he's got 3 games in a row with 6 targets or more from Drake May. So they seem to have a good connection. I talked about Eric Davon Valle is one of my sleepers. So I like him here at 2% ownership off of just direct leverage off of Sutton. Mark Andrews, same thing. That's a game that, Wilson's getting ownership, Pickens getting ownership. And I actually, when you look at the matchups, I think it's a good spot for Andrews because they got really good corners in Pittsburgh. So it's going to be a tough matchup for Flowers and the pass catchers. Andrews, 4,600, low ownership and a high team total. So give me that. And then Titans D, we saw it last week, and they got Ladarius Sneed back this week. So we saw how bad Darnold was last week, and this is a pretty good defense in the secondary. So give me that pay down option at 2,300. I'll roll with this lineup this week.
Yeah, I know there's kind of not a necessarily bad thing about stacking the quarterback and a running back, but when you have someone like McCaffrey, obviously you have Jennings in there as well, but when you have someone like McCaffrey he's one of the few guys that, you don't probably mind stacking a quarterback with a running back because of his talent set, of his skill set rather. Yeah, the Titans thing, the Titans defense, it's kind of funny because sometimes defenses are looked, oh, they're not that good, but they're pretty good defense. But sometimes their quarterback puts them in precarious positions. So
Yes.
on paper, it doesn't quite look as good as it can be. But yeah, they're a good defense for sure. I like the lineup. I like your two running backs. I think the most out of everything there.
Thanks, man. Yeah, appreciate it. I think could be a pretty good week with this lineup, and definitely a lineup I would want to put in like some single entry as well, not just the Millie Maker, some of the larger field single entries because I think it's got a lot of leverage that you're looking for in the lineup, and also has some good chalk. So typically what we're
Yeah.
looking for. But
And just to add one last thing on there,
yeah,
I mean, you say it's really easy, which it is, but it's pretty amazing. You can choose a couple players who you want in your lineups, and then you can generate how many lineups you want, what percentage you want, ownership. Hit a button, and it generates 150 lineups like that. And
yeah,
then you could kind of pick and choose and maybe submit a few, but it's a pretty awesome tool that I've used it before as well, and it's amazing because you see things you didn't think about before.
yeah,
So it gives you some lineups. You're like, oh, and then it can give you other ideas or an idea to build another lineup that's similar based on what they gave you. I mean, if you scroll down a little bit, you can see like a lot of the lineups are, they're pretty awesome. It's an awesome tool. I think it's
yeah,
underrated.
for sure. And actually, Geek won 20K last week, second place in a tournament. And, one of the things that he said credited to the tool was putting Calvin Ridley into his lineups because he never would have played Ridley last week with
Yeah.
Levis coming back. But since he ran 150 and it keeps you from getting out of your own way because
Yeah.
oftentimes like you may have like you put in your feel of the slate for the optimizer, like you tweak it to how you want it to go. And you may have a lot of right calls, but you need that one guy that you weren't thinking of, to really help you get to that lineup towards the top of the leaderboards. And
Yep.
that's exactly what happened. So it's a great point. But
Definitely well
Eric,
worth it.
any final thoughts on the slate?
No, man, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to this weekend again. It's been a busy weekend. You have the Mike Tyson, Jake Paul fight, and then you have a UFC fight on tonight. Then you got football on Sunday. It's like, I
Yeah.
can't ask for much more on a weekend.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm happy. Looking forward to the games.
Yeah, me too. We got people coming over for the fight, so I got to start cleaning up the house. But yeah, it's gonna be a great weekend of sports. And thank you for joining us. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next week.